Countdown to Halloween, featuring Gregory Miller's Dark Nights and Candlelight, 31 Tiny October Tales. Every night at exactly midnight, a new story will appear on Storylink Radio's YouTube channel. You'll have 24 hours to listen, then it will disappear and the next one will appear. Plan to catch these each day or you'll miss one. Each story will be 2 to 13 minutes long. If you haven't already, be sure to listen to the introduction to the book right here on this channel. And now, tonight's story from Dark Nights and Candlelight, 31 Tiny October Tales. October 9th, The Loss. Martin Burns called Brian Grooms on the phone for over 9 years. 3 of them while dead. Those 3 years started out as surreal and profoundly disturbing time for Brian. However, the human mind is capable of adapting to new perspectives far faster, more thoroughly than many are willing to credit. For weeks he was shocked, then terrified, then deeply unsettled. But 13-year-olds are profoundly inquisitive, so the terror and unease quickly changed to curiosity and excitement, then joy as the new reality fully sank in. Martin was still around despite the car crash, and even as his body gently decayed in the cemetery earth beyond town. He only called on one phone, though, an old landline connected to a cordless phone in the basement game room. Perhaps it had something to do with the signal, or the phone, or the rules that governed where Martin now was. It didn't really matter. Brian was fine with it. Once a week, every Thursday, at the exact time of Martin's death, that phone rang, and Brian made sure he was home to take the call. His parents never seemed to notice the clockwork schedule, never seemed to notice that he was on the phone then at all. And so he and Martin could talk freely, and did. They talked about everything they'd always talked about when Martin was alive. Martin could sometimes still see his friends and family, even though he could not communicate with them. Only Brian's phone seemed to work. So he kept up to date on everything they did through his own methods, and that meant Brian didn't have to fill him in on every little thing. Martin even watched television and saw the latest movies. So even though he couldn't, for one reason or another, speak much about the place where he now was, things continued on much as usual between them. And at the end of every conversation, Martin always asked Brian, "Can you talk next week?" And Brian always said he could. And for much of those first 3 years following Martin's death, that's how things went. But eventually Brian realized something. Martin did not age. Well, it made sense that he wouldn't, Brian supposed. Martin would always be 13. It was only after Brian turned 16 that he recognized the growing burden of that reality. The calls, while still welcome, were no longer something he looked forward to like he had before. The conversations became shorter, a bit less comfortable and natural, and sometimes he found himself wondering if Martin noticed too, and felt the same. Then, ever so gradually, Brian started missing the weekly calls entirely. First it was just every now and then. Brian always felt bad and always did his best to make good excuses. Things came up, after all. Lacrosse practice, study sessions, Julie Morrison. He could tell Martin was hurt, but after the apologies, he always seemed to rally quickly and became the same old Martin again. But then the missed calls became more frequent, the reasons for missing them more numerous. Until one Thursday evening, after a long day, Brian was lying on the couch watching YouTube videos and the phone rang. He lowered his iPhone and stared at the old cordless phone as it rang on the end table. Three, 4, 5 times it rang, until it finally stopped, and Brian sighed, thinking he'd have time next week. He was tired. He didn't have anything new to tell Martin. He didn't feel like making conversation. And then the message light lit up. Brian stared at it. Martin never left messages. He set down his iPhone, he leaned over, and he hit play. At first there was nothing, just a mournful static that sounded like wind blowing against windows and over the roofs of houses. Then Martin's voice, only a faint whisper, as if resting on a breath of buffeted air. I can see you on the couch, Brian. Enjoy YouTube. I'm going away. The time has come. Goodbye. The message ended. No, Brian said softly. Desperately, he hit redial. Nothing rang on the other end. And after a long moment, he again heard the wind, gusting as sounded over deep and tumultuous waters. He called out, throwing his voice into the cold, far gloom on the other end of the line, and he imagined the wind whisking the sound away to places beyond his comprehension, pulling his meager pleas to pieces in the darkness of another world. As a small figure walked steadily away from it, now just a tiny shadow among shadows the size of mountains. After several minutes, Brian hung up, eyes bright and red. And for many Thursday evenings that followed, as he waited by the phone that never rang again, he thought to himself, I'm more dead to him than he is to me. I'm more dead to him than he is to me. I'm more dead to him than he is to me. You've just heard tonight's story from Dark Nights and Candlelight, 31 Tiny October Tales from author Gregory Miller. You can get this book right now on Amazon at the on-screen link, and Kindle Unlimited users can borrow a copy of the book for free. You can learn more about Gregory Miller and his many amazing books and projects at his website, On Screen. If you have not already, be sure to listen to our event video here and visit our event website to learn all about our upcoming events. Remember to come back after midnight for our next tale. Oh, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button for Storylink Radio.